Plus, Ultra presents The Grey Lodge, Friday Night Gnostic Mass, but it's not really because it's our year-end Gnostic Mass for a year in flux, Rites of the Dragon, which I have to say is kind of a bar, but no one's really surprised that I wrote a bar. So I'm Jin the Ninja. I host a show called Threshold Saints. We do this as a group. We come together in consent where are all the things? We come together in consent on the app called X, transcend time and space, come together in the middle pillar, non-duality, and bodhicitta framework. Obviously, I don't do this alone. I do this with all the co-hosts, of which there are... Well, we're flexible. We've got flexible numbers and flexible, we are rotating cast. But the steady pillars are, of course, Matt Murrah, Mike, and Dr. William Birkin, and of course, Solar Exile. And if you're interested in Threshold Saints, I would very much recommend you go listen to all the recent episodes, which are, I would say, all of them are quite good. And the production value has gone up significantly on the show because I pay a little money for that to happen. So I have a good mic, I have a good audio software now. So, we're moving upward and onward. And so, little housekeeping is that, yes, Threshold Saints does have a Substack. So I know that's a little late to the game, but we're going to see what we can do on there. Because it's cool, and there's ways to make it collaborative and to give people access to write short form or medium form, things if they have episodes that they want to engage with, or ideas or notes or anything like that. So that is already up. It's already live. It's not super keynote or anything just yet, but it's thresholdsaints.substack.com. If you're really interested. Of course, there is the true Greylodge.com, which is the site that our webmaster, Matt Murrah, built for us, and we appreciate that very much. And there will be a parallel Grey Lodge feed on the Threshold Saints Substack, but it will be titled The Grey Lodge. So there will be a little subsection where we'll get all the YouTube feeds. So now the YouTube feed will go in two places. So it'll kind of make it easier. So then it's there when you're on Threshold Saints, but also if you want to watch Grey Lodge, you can go to the site, or you can go to the Substack. It'll just give you more options in the digital Aetherwave archive. And hopefully it'll be a home for some of our first short form kind of aeonic, my little stories and shit that I write about, Scion and Nuria and all that. I'm proud of it, but we'll just say it like that. But basically, all of that will go on there as well. So it'll be a catch-all place, and hopefully it will just be kind of a foundation for us to build from, just as the site was a foundation and is a foundation for us to build from. And and thank you, of course, Matt, for uploading all of our and managing our YouTube channel. There we go, Solar Exile. I know he's also working, so we'll see how much mic time he has. But I know, and Mike has to leave early. He's already told me. Mike's a good dude like that. And so, so this is our Rite of the Dragon for the year in flux. So, welcome. And I have a little structure. I know that'll surprise people, I think, but I do have a little structure. But why don't we... I'll let you guys all plug, because I know you all have things that you want to plug. Joshua has his spaces, Matt has his Twitch, Mike has his NFTs, Solar has his episodes and all the other stuff that he's doing. So I'll let you guys all plug, and then we'll get to it. We'll see how it goes. I'm a little nervous, but we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be great, to be honest. But why don't we start from reverse? So we'll go... Well, Joshua, why don't you start it, and then Mike, and then Matt, and then Solar.
It's a pleasure to be back. I really enjoy hearing you guys' voices. But yeah, I did start doing some spaces recently. I think maybe Wednesday night might be the night I probably end up doing them. I've just been calling them schizo spaces, just discussing my current events, but also going through, pages and pages of notes and stuff, and just kind of revisiting topics, some of them from like 5 years ago even. But anyway, it's just nice to synthesize things, even experience some synchronicities with folks, so it's been interesting. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, and go ahead and I guess the next person can go ahead and talk. Thanks.
Thanks, Joshua. Okay, Mike, and then Matt, and then Solar.
Hey guys, glad to be back. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. I don't really have anything to plug. I mean, yeah, I do stuff with NFTs and it's kind of like a long process. I do share a lot of crypto art. I feel like I don't even want to explain it because I feel like it's it's too hard to convince people if they're not open to it. But it's something that's kind of just happening slowly. But yeah, besides that, I don't really have anything to plug. But glad to be here. Happy to see you guys again.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Joshua, I see you have your hand up. You want to go really quick before Matt?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention, because of the holiday season, I also gave some patronage to Cassandra. She had a cool Etsy shop. I got some really nice gifts. So I'd just encourage people to check out some of our people here, Truth and Dyes even, ordering some shirts from her. Remember the idea about wearing a different color each day? Well, she's going to help me kind of make that happen, with a project. So anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to some of the people that are out there like doing tarot services, tie-dyes, jewelry, so on and so forth. So anyway, thanks.
I have to confess, I'm sorry, Vanessa. I see you're in the room, but I have to tell you that Vanessa already told on you, Joshua. So that's what happened. So I actually did know you bought shirts, but I'm glad that you brought it up. Yeah, Vanessa's great. She's very supportive and she's awesome. So if you're interested, you want tie-dye, go check out Vanessa on Etsy. Of course, Cassandra's been my mutual for like a long time now. And yeah, amazing person. Like I love Cassandra. I told Cassandra, I said, if your like longtime BF doesn't, if he doesn't like eventually do it, yeah, Cassandra and I are gonna get married. That's how it's gonna go. So basically, yeah, check out Cassandra, check out her Etsy store, check out her all her things, her content, and she is coming on Saints. She did say that she would, so it's happening, Cassandra. We're putting in the Aether Wave right now. Okay, sorry about that. Matt Murrah, please go ahead.
How is it going? Can you guys hear me? Nice,
Yep.
great.
Good.
Great. So, very happy to be here again. Don't even remember when was the last time. I think a month ago or something, like 3 weeks. A lot of stuff's going on. I am not in Europe anymore, so the time zone is much easier on me. I'm very closer to US time zone now, so that's very helpful. As always, you can find me on many social medias as at MattMora19. That's gonna be X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, maybe some other place. There's also my website, which I will do some changes. As Joshua pointed out, tarot readings. So I'm going to work more specifically on those now. Not necessarily going to stop the other ones, but just going to give more priority to that because I want to work on tarot thing. And that's going to be for people that read tarot and people that get the readings, obviously. So I'll need to contact both. If you are interested in any party, let's say if you are a tarot reader or a tarot person that wants tarot readings, just DM me or contact me anyhow. And I can speak more on that. But for now, I'll be closing the other readings unless it's super important or I feel super compelled, like someone was the 100th subscriber to our YouTube channel, and then I gifted them a Gematria reading. That was really nice. Shout out to them. And yeah, aside from that, a lot of cool episodes recently as well. We had the one at the Embassy of the Free Mind in Amsterdam. I did it with Stein from the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. That one was very nice. First time I did a podcast in person. That was really cool. So yeah, go check that out as well. Always on my website, Kabbalah.com, KAABALAH.com. And as Jin said as well, we have our YouTube and website on thetruegraylodge.com with a V. So true. Very excited for today. So
Okay, Solar Exile, go for it.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jin. So I'm already back at work, so I might be participating in a more limited capacity, as I'm sure most of you are used to putting up with already. So thank you in advance for your patience. It's one of those funny things. This past weekend was sort of the high point of my ritual calendar for the last 6 months. And I envisioned the time between last weekend and at the end of the year, at the very least, being this like nice, relaxing time where I'd be sort of with recuperating my energies and sort of trying to figure out next steps, this and that, right? Like it was going to go a certain way. None of that happened. You know, some of the rites were failures, and I've been involved in ritual work every single goddamn night since the solstice. But yeah, it really do be like that sometimes. But yeah, anyway, couple of episodes have been recently released on Threshold Saints, in which I played a small part. I'm very grateful for those opportunities. Yeah, always working with Jin on this or that thing coming down the pike, you know, on some time scale, you know, aeonic or otherwise. Yeah, otherwise just doing my own thing. Very happy to be here with all you gentlemen.
Thank you, Solar. And you didn't play a small part. You were definitely my co-host, as I would always say, as are all of you when you come on, especially for like people from our group, right? But yeah, I hope we can get those episodes done. I have great Kino. I'm so excited to use it. And I was saying before you came, the production on the show has gone a lot better. I mean, yeah, we still have sometimes audio issues. Like I live in a weird place. It's hard. The Aether wave is unstable at times, but you know, Shua Young Magi does what he can. So I thought, in honor of all of that, thought we could talk about mythology. Now, I know that I have gotten criticism, perhaps rightfully so, about being overly speculative in my mythological appraisal of things. But as you all know, I often believe my own bullshit, especially when it comes to speculative Gnosticism, and I do believe my own framework. So this is a reality. As I've been reading a lot of interesting texts lately, and not just the conventional, like, yeah, obviously Kenneth Grant I had read as a kid, but to read it like now, especially with like the way I think about the aeons, quite interesting, as we'll say that. So it's been quite expansive in the sense that I have learned a lot about the other people, that I'm not special in a way, like not as special maybe as I thought I was, at least for like being innovative and like thoughtful in my appraisal of the aeons. But I think I am innovative, but I just maybe not the most unique of all, the special star, you could say. I mean, I still think I am the special Yule star, but yes, but maybe not the only one in the worlds. So basically that. So I think that I think aeonic stuff is all true, and I think that my aeonic framework is good. I think it's stable, as we could say. And I think it makes sense, and I think it actually correlates to what everyone else is saying, just taking it perhaps in a more updated, you know, sometimes you have to, what's the word, straddle the threshold between like a little bit of that kind of like dialectical materialism and metaphysics, like high-end metaphysics, we'll call it. So you have to, you know, kind of be a little schizo. Maybe not Jason Giorgiani level, but Jason, please come on the show, of course. But you know, maybe not that bad. But yeah, I think speculatively I am a Gnostic, and as I always say, Vajrayana is Gnosticism in a way. So just like I think bodhicitta, middle path, and the other thing that we always say, non-duality, of course, are really important. So I thought we could read actually. Or I thought I would read a little story about Rahula. Now, you know, I love the dragon, and I did call the space the rites of the dragon, so the primordial dragon. So this actually comes from a scholar's book, which is called, and yes, Solar, it is the one I sent you from Cameron Bailey. And it discusses Rahula's origin. So I just thought I'd read his origin story because I thought it'd be really interesting for all of us to like sort of appraise it. And then I thought we could also, I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to read a little part of the second treatise of Seth, which I think would be also interesting. So anyways, that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And then if you have commentaries, if anyone has commentaries about this or about the dragon or the sun figure, then this would be a great time to probably discuss those things. Or anything. If you want to just discuss year in review, that's okay. We'll just leave the kinds of mythopoesis to be as they are in the Aether Wave. Okay. So this is from a tantra called the Black Nail Tantra. It's also a story that is found in the Clarifying Lamp Tantra, which no longer exists but in commentaries and in other pieces of other tantras. However, there's no problem telling the story because it's totally translated and it's not a practice, it's just a conceptual sort of framework for looking at how this particular protector arises in the Buddhist cosmology. Now, as you know, Rahu Rahu and Ketu are the same figure, so Buddhism will posit them as one figure. So if you hear me say Rahula, it's just talking about that they're one figure. The head and the tail are together. They're not separated. And that's sort of an important point for the Buddhist story, is that he is very dualistic. And obviously Buddhism, especially Tantra, posits itself as non-dual. So you have to keep that in mind while I'm reading it. Okay. Thus I have heard at one time the supreme body of all the Tathagatas, the Blessed One, noble Manjushri Kumara, one word, dwelt together with a retinue of Bodhisattva heroes, the Viras, in the limitless Akanishta, in a celestial palace ornamented with a variety of precious stones, with the 5 desirable qualities in all directions, accompanying the welfare of beings, with a peaceful mind for the purpose of pacifying untamed savages, the Browns, negative forces such as noxious spirits and death spirit violators, the Blessed One in meditative absorption, called frightening malevolent ones and subduing all evil, instantly entered the body of blood-drinking Bhairava, black like crushed stone, terrifying with a variety of vicious weapons, his 2 legs crushing beings into the Vajra hell. He manifests from the sphere of space, churning the universe, transcending levels and limits in all ways, the highest, undiminished, roaming through the carnal grounds. He became chief of a mandala of great Vajra holders, kings, regents, vassal holders, inner and outer ministers, and so forth, each with their own retinue. He had an inconceivable host of disease causers, liars, and evil ones. Furthermore, he had a collection of passionate ladies, queens, queens of queens, female regents, female ministers, and serving women, each with their own retinue, the ladies of the 4 types of disease, of the humors and inconceivable hosts of the causers, of the 404 types of diseases. He resided together with all of them in sin, also accompanied by his consorts Vitali, which means vampire, and Ekajati, she who's the one braid, but in this case she's talking about the werewolf, so we're going to go with that. He dwelt in union with them. Then the Blessed One, Mahabhairava, who wears a buffalo's head, entered into the state of meditative stabilization called the 5 lights, collecting all the 5 poisons. Immediately upon entering that, the consort Vitali, the vampire, generated the word Aho with lightning between her eyes. She was aroused by Mahabhairava, who entered into her mind. They cried, "Oh bliss!" and dallied together. A shower of fluid, we'll say, entered into the consort's womb, and their retinue simultaneously experienced the taste of bliss. Light emanated into the realms of the 10 directions. With the mind of enlightenment, they bestowed initiation on all sentient beings, establishing them in bliss. All these light rays collected the essence of all the wicked beings in the 3 realms, the 5 poisons of wrong view, the 10 non-virtues, and so forth. And they dissolved into Bhairava's body. Then from the play of non-duality came the black light of hatred, the yellow light of self-pride, the green light of jealousy, and so forth. On a swastika base on the peak of Mount Meru emanated light that became the blazing Raksha, Yaksha Javala, which means the great volcano king. And he dwelt at the peak of Mount Meru in a blaze of hate. The red light of lust and the smoky light of delusion emanated into the sea and became the Nagini Yaksha woman. She dwelt in boiling blood of lust in the depths of the sea. The consort Vitali, with a smiling appearance, having seen the Nagini Vajra Yaksha woman glowing with lust, made a sign with her tongue. Because of this, the Nagini Vajra Yaksha woman also felt fiercely lustful. She cried out, "Ka, Ka," with the roar of 1,000 thunderclaps. Immediately, the 3,000-fold world system, the big world, simultaneously shook, rattled intensely, roared intensely, moved intensely. When the edges were high, the middle was low. When the middle was high, the edges were leveled. All the devas, nagas, asuras, garudas, gandharas, kinnaras, mahoragas, yakshas, rakshas, pretas, pisahachinis, bhutas, kumbhandas. I'm not going to read it. It's like a really long list. So it's just a bunch of like, it's all the 8 classifications of beings and spirits, basically. And so forth. All the evil ones abiding in the worlds were gathered together, and they became angry and astonished. They spoke thus to the Blessed One, Maho, among the noble ones, noble Yamataka, the dual light of space and awareness, by the blessings of the collected 5 worldly poisons, you roared, Kikang, with the force of 1,000 thunderclaps. The 3 worlds shook all at once. How wondrous! We beg you to be compassionate and protect us. Having said that, they dispersed. Oh shit, I read the wrong part. Oh no, that was right. Sorry about that. Their own abodes. Then the Yaksha Javala, the great volcano king, in a blaze of hatred on the peak of Mount Meru, and the Nagini Vajrayaksha woman, in a flood of lustful blood from the depths of the sea, coiled around each other and without touching, meaning that they were in psychic union. They were psychically together, but they weren't physically together, and made the sound Kikang. Now, this is interesting. Kikang is the Tibetan way to say Jin Gang, which is diamond thunder. So it's the sound of the clanging adamantine metal clanging together. So this also refers to my name. So it's interesting. Not my full name, but I'm just saying Jin Gang is the actual sound. So it's like an onomatopoeia or an alliteration, whatever. Yeah, yes, Matt. Sorry, go ahead.
Just confirm me if I'm wrong, but did you say one of the words was like aho or something like that?
Yeah, it's the short 3 syllables, M-Maho, like
M-A-H-O.
E-M-A-H-O.
Okay, because it's they say it in the Nate. Like usually when you go to any ayahuasca retreat or whatever, and you get in touch with the people there, they have their own slangs and stuff. I'm not really sure what it means, but I have heard people say aho as in A-H-O, usually like the double V. But then it's funny because you mentioned that, and then in my mind it connected to that. It's like okay, something very interesting there.
No, there is. I think that the syllables, people are trying to recreate the primordial syllables in a way, or they're being told like a syllable from maybe a plant spirit, and there's like, well, this is the idea in Sanskrit, is that the seeds get corrupted, but whether through use or through misremembering or through aggregation or through like the sort of the clarity is gone from the perception of what the seed originally primordial is, which the word is of course empty. So you have to sort of rid yourself of all the inputs and sort of go back to Rigpa, Diamond Thunder, and then like also make it go. So by doing that, you're clarifying like the quality of the actual primordial sound. So I think that that's kind of the point, and I think that that's also the point of like the sound of the protector being Kliklang, also meaning Diamond Thunder, because it's his story of apotheosis. It's like, yes, he's born from these 2 ferocious beings. There's a Buddha who comes to like rectify the world, this great like the slayer of death, Yamataka. He comes to destroy this, like he is like a satanic figure, and then he also has a sort of battle with another satanic figure. That's kind of how it is. They're both like very carnal ground, aggressive, powerful, wrathful deities. One with a buffalo's head, and one that is black as crushed stone, like as onyx. So I think it's about how he's created from carnal ground conditions, and how this in itself is an adamantizing process. Because there's one thing that is interesting that I was thinking about when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about or what we were going to discuss. Obviously, the dragon is interesting to me, and it has always been. But I also think that it's misunderstood about adamantine is that that sounds like adamantine's already made. But in Chinese, the idea is that the adamantizing process is ongoing, is happening. It's like the creation of the Diamond Thunder is like continuous. It's like a process. It's like you're not static, you're dynamic. So it should be adamantizing rather than adamantine. So I think that that's kind of the idea. Yes, Solar, please go ahead.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound really thinking about this in a completely different context. It doesn't really matter. But I think a common sort of ontological mistake when we're across concepts or just sort of like understanding things in general, east to west, is we turn things into nouns. We turn things into like either nouns or sort of like stable properties like predicates, when in reality, like I think a lot of these quote unquote things are actually like activities or sort of like potentials that one does or that can be done, if you want to say it passively, right? Sometimes that's a really subtle distinction. I was thinking about this in terms of like soul complexes, right? Where you start like sort of like ontologically complicating and multiplying things. And I'm like, I'm not actually sure that all these things, quote unquote, sort of like exist in their own sort of like stable, independent place. I think this is more perhaps of a certain sort of like configuration of energy that one can do at a given time, or perhaps outside of time, if you want to be more correct on the higher levels. But anyway, again, I don't want to derail, but yeah, this sort of like verb to nouning, if that makes any sense, I feel like can trip us up like so easily.
No, that's an amazing point. Honestly, I think it's totally true, and I think it's much more tantric to think of it as like a wind force, like a yeah, it's like your chariot. You're going through the Merkaba journey. You're going through the mandala. I mean, that's exactly even what you said about time was interesting, just because of the story and how this becomes like a point in the story. Obviously, I'll read it. And so maybe I won't explain it now, but I think that I think it makes a lot of sense, is because the idea is to come out of this process, this adamantizing process, this kind of tantric experience, and be outside of time. So be outside of the time king, like be outside of his purview. So you're kind of just in space, which is like the more Ketuvian element. So you're still like existing as like a sort of a subtle body, like a, like a spiritual body. You haven't necessarily gone up or gone out, but you kind of are a little more acausal. Now, I know that this is like a question, is like, if you're a spiritual body, are you a causal? Well, not in the Buddhist conception. You're still within cause, but your causes are minimized to the subtle world. So, you have a little bit of agency within the spiritual world. And I did post David Chaim Smith. I got corrected on this privately, not in a bad way. I was told I had to, say a little better. So, I posted a quote that directly deals with this. So this kind of idea of like, so David's idea is a little different than mine. Obviously, mine's more derived from Dharma, Buddhism, Tantrayana. So, but I think it's all reconcilable, as I always say. So, no problem at all. Okay, so we'll continue the story. So the great Yaksha Jvala, the volcano face king, in a blaze of hatred on the peak of Mount Meru, and the Nagini Vajra Yaksha woman. So she is the diamond thunder, like she's like a Yaksha is like a nature spirit, so it's like a nymph. That's kind of what I would say it was. In a flood of lustful blood that made the sound King Kong, and 5 children were generated from their minds. So they were having psychic sex, and then they generated 5 children. So they were 4 sisters and a brother. The brother Kikong caused great disturbance, and the Kikong sisters each had 4 heads. They ate and mangled all beings in the 3 realms and ruined the world. So the Blessed One, by Rava Yamataka, the great buffalo-faced king who slayed death itself, threw a discus at the brother and cut his body into 8 pieces. The Blessed One sucked phenomenal existence into the interior of his body, which transcended limits into the vacuity of his precious mind. From the amulet box, precious Dharma wheel surrounded by the 4 great oceans and the 7 playful lakes, divided into concentric circles by the 7 golden mountain ranges. The great Kikong was thrust into the 4 cardinal and intermediate directions, which were thus produced. His head arose as the southwest and was established there. His right hand was established as the southeast. His left hand was established as northwest. His 2 legs were established as the northeast. His tail was established as the east. His right shoulder was established as the south. His left shoulder was established as the west. His bladder was established as the north. His eyes, fangs, and heart were placed between his legs. His 4 sisters were placed at the 4 corners of Mount Meru. Like that, they were cut and concealed like bits of yeast. From each section of his body arose anew Ki Kong, and yet again they intensely shook the world. Also, the sisters were concealed like bits of yeast and emerged from the four corners of Mount Meru. Again and again they ate and chewed sentient beings of the three realms without distinction, and excreted them. Again, the Blessed One, Yamataka, gathered the three realms under his great power. He overpowered the three worlds. Similarly, he gathered together the darkness of the entire and great 3,000 world system. At the tip of light rays of his wisdom mind, an inconceivably vast array of hooks, nooses, shackles, and bells spread out, proclaiming Hong Hong Pe, Hala Hala Zhang Hong Bang Ho, I A Rali Rali Hong Ri Za Za, with a roar of 10,000 diamond thunder claps simultaneously. He brought Kikang under control. Brother Kikong, with his sisters, was frightened, extremely frightened, completely extremely frightened. They were shaken and were in terror. With palms joined together, they spoke with one voice to the Blessed One. O Bhairava, sir, we are the brothers and sisters Kikang. Because we are good children of poisonous results, we chew, swallow, and excrete out all creatures in existence without exception. These actions of destroying yearly crops, if this is our natural activity, why do you reprimand us, great hero? Also, previously, the great hero cut my body into pieces and buried me in the 10 directions. This is very bad. Do you not have compassion? If you, the great chief of himself, as the Lord of love and compassion, why do you manifest like this? Why do you like this? Great hero, we do not seek instructions, but we will become your attendants. Not minor, but ardent attendants, meaning within the deeper mandala. Thus they begged. In general, they offered up their life force, steadfast, without hostility. He bestowed vows and initiation, and they were established in worldly bliss. They were empowered to eat the life and breath of those who harm the Buddha's teachings, those who send people to hell, and those who break their vows. Having bound under oath the 8 classes of powerful gods and demons, they were empowered. Moreover, the Rakshasa's ash-colored body was crowned with a raven's head. Having transformed into the 8 classes of gods and demons, he entered and roamed through date and time, Kikang and the 4 enemies, sisters, by moving and shaking, becoming masters over life and breath. Kikang, brother and sisters were jubilant, and having circled Mahabhairava 3 times, knelt with their hands pressed together and spoke these words, Ah la la ho! Mahabhairava, having thoughts of affection for us, has commanded us to act in accordance with our own karmic inclinations. How wondrous! We brothers and sisters will not transgress the activity just as commanded and will perform the activities we have been entrusted with without question. And thus they have said, and being vowed, they went to each their own abode, and thus it was said. Okay, I know that was a little rough, but I thought it was a really interesting story of the demon Rahula and how one version, obviously, of how he becomes subjugated within Dharma. Hello, Monty. Long time no speak, but I'm glad to see you. Obviously, you are a co-host, and you are always welcome. And obviously, you're Grey Lodge, and you're always welcome to come on whenever we're doing something. So I just thought it was an interesting story, just because it's like it's the dragon, it's Rahu. Everybody on Astro Twitter loves to talk shit about Rahu Ketu, and they don't really understand like how important he is. Like he has a huge cosmological role, if you want to call that. He is the king of space. He's the king of stars. He's the evil star god. But he too can be liberated, purified, and still be wrathful, still do his thing. So I think he's such a cool character and like a very powerful astrological force. And I just think if you're interested in kind of astrotheology, okay, yes, sorry, Joshua and Solar. Joshua, you get to go a little earlier.
I'll be brief. So I have shared a link down below that I think was about the same character. So correct me if I'm wrong. But it said there that he devours illusion and ego. And so I was curious if you think that this year, kind of in review, as we were suggesting earlier, was kind of marked by things like the destruction of illusion. Like, for instance, with the Epstein files that were redacted recently, but actually you could still get the text. I think would be a good example of, well, that's an illusion. And then with a little bit of tech know-how, you can dispel the illusion. So I think that those types of things might fall into this category. And then the one other point was, I think I read that eclipses were kind of related to this as well, this topic.
The way he manifests in the physical world is through the eclipse of the sun and the moon. So that's how you can exactly think of it. It's like it's a shadow body, both, but it's you in Vedic astrology they count it. In Jyotisha it counts. So just think of it like that, Joshua. There's 9. It's always 9. Solar, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Just I just want to piggyback on something Joshua just said though. So it's possible, right, that this is yet another, sort of colossal fuck up, tech or otherwise, right? But there's also, there's what I would consider perhaps like a higher degree of probability, right? That they basically turn the like quote unquote disclosure into a sort of like participatory ARG game, right? Where like not only do you get to sort of instead of passively receiving like, oh hey, here's just imagine if they just released the unredacted files, right? But no, we heighten the mystery. We allow, industrious sleuths to play around with copy paste. And oh, wouldn't you know? We can do this one simple trick that lends itself very well to short form video content, right? You can record your screen going back and forth between the redacted files and the text, and oh my god, right? It turns it into a sort of participatory sensational process, right? It's a sort of popular theater, right? That we all get to have a little role. I personally find that type of stuff quite delightful. It's really encouraging. Like I've made the joke multiple times about how it's heartwarming how Zog continues to keep American theater solvent in more ways than one, and I think this is just another instance of that, perhaps. But yeah, without getting too cynical. Anyway, sort of back to the content of the Tantra. I guess I'm really interested, particularly in trying to sort of establish bridges, but also sort of like delineate like impassable sort of obstacles in sort of like the path philosophy, right? And the sort of the role of the dragon as this sort of like impulse to this sort of like force that's outside of the individual, but at the same time sort of present in the form of the black flame, like nascent within the individual, that's then cultivated throughout this process of, whether you want to say kefir, self-deification, right, on this path to God, right? And I'm interested particularly in what's done with the formation of these worldly protectors, right? Because yes, they're brought into the mandala and in a non-trivial way, but at the same time, their karmic inclinations are sort of repurposed, like towards dharmic ends, very skillfully. But at the same time, they're still very much like contingent to, very much bound by those inclinations, which is a pretty hard limitation on what they can do, right? Like in some ways, they're sort of like defined by this like karmic momentum, these karmic imprints, right? They're not able to free themselves from it, at least in this rebirth. And that's something that makes me very uneasy when I contemplate the just my own experience, I guess, and what I look around and see in the contemporary Western sort of left-hand esoteric traditions, right? Like again, I've said as much on episodes, so we don't need to like revisit it here, but I'm really wary of this, like, what we're allowing to accrete around the sort of core of the self in this process of deification. It seems like we're very quick to want to transfer, to work with those karmic seeds, those karmic impulses, that foundation, right? And take that to the stars, so to speak. And yes, I also want to go beyond the stars, right? But I want to make sure that the vehicle that actually makes it there is worth transfiguring in the first place, right? So I don't know if you want to say more about, like, the sort of like worldly protector as that might apply to the process of self-deification. If you got anything on that, but yeah, whatever.
Well, each worldly protector, and like worldly protectors, there are worldly protectors and there are enlightened protectors, of course. So Rahula is actually an enlightened protector. And so, yes, he's a worldly god, but he's an enlightened protector. So what he represents is astrological magic. That's actually his like fundamental, and weather, and like it's like weather, and it's weather and magic. That's really what his sort of purview or office is. So obviously in Tantra, it's the three elements become one: the fire, earth, air, or not, fire, earth, and water become air. So he is that kind of air. He's the velocity, the impulse. So, but as he's very dualistic, so you have to kind of use the Indian framework for this. Like it's like a basic understanding of astrology. So Rahu is loves materiality, so he's always trying to stay here, and Ketu hates materiality and loves the spirit body, so he's always trying to get out of here. So you have to understand him as having like a dualistic impulse, just like a person does. So yes, he is partly contained within our own minds, and he's also it's probably like a way that we can sort of understand exterior phenomena, but also knowing that, well, I take a more non-theistic approach where it's not like God or a God even. It's just like these are kind of like archetypal, mythic archetypal, but also slightly real thing, like sort of beings, cosmic beings, you could say. But as like the story said, there are 3,000, like it's a 3,000 world system, so there's a lot of possibilities. So I would say that the worldly protectors, like, okay, so you know that, so the quote you used for your episode, for episode 77, so you know that what paper that came from or what text that came from. So there is idea in that text of like doing sort of liberation. We'll call it liberation from afar. Well, I thought that was really interesting because we have the exact same idea in Tantra. It's called Drowa. It's not that crazy or like unheard of. It's called, that's also directly translated as liberation from afar. So you can draw, you know, whatever conclusion you want by what that means, but it has to meet a certain criteria. You can't just like go around and like pull your peg out everywhere. It has to be something that is, it has to like adhere to the Dharma. So that's the rules that you kind of have to work around. So I think that in terms of worldly protectors, the more you're seated in Rigpa, the less reactive you are to like worldly impulses. I think that's the whole point. And so, you know, the worldly protectors are meant for like worldly things, worldly ends. But like again, Rahula is actually an enlightened protector. So the whole idea is that it will inevitably be part of like the opening of that gate to help you move between the stars, since that's what he does. He swims in the, you know, starry sea. Yes, sorry, Monty. I'm gonna let Monty go really quick. I'm sorry, Monty, and then I'll let Solar go.
Hey everybody. I don't really have a whole lot to say. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry to anybody who I left hanging. You know, it's been times get tough, get a little tumultuous, got to lock in, stuff like that. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate you know, seeing everybody here, listening again, and it really is a treat and a delight to be with you all. I think that this is really a special collective, and yeah, it's this is both Rahu and Telu, the marriage of you know, material and beyond. So I just wanted to say, you know, again, I'm really sorry. I have a really bad habit of dropping off the face of the earth without telling anyone. See you all here. It's great to be back, and yeah, you know, 2026, where it's that we're gonna slay the dragon, and go into 2026 victorious with the meat of the Leviathan nourishing us. So, 1,000 years, Grey Lodge.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Monty. Yeah, 1,000 Years Grey Lodge. I couldn't agree more. Okay, Solar. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to like dial into this just a little bit more before we move on, if you don't mind. Okay, so I guess like what I'm most interested in here, like just to get really particular, is the persistence of a basis for discrimination and preference within like an enlightened protector or other sort of enlightened being, essentially like a non-worldly being, right? And the reason I'm asking you this is that at least in my like Dzogchen practice, we make a lot of the idea of sort of this sort of like ultimate one taste of samsara and nirvana, right? That as things sort of liberate out, as things sort of loosen up, and as the basically like everything that sort of arises and spontaneously releases within the sort of like infinite luminous space of awareness, that one becomes kind of like indifferent to that, because you sort of recognize that this is all just the sort of spontaneous effulgence of Rigpa, I think is the Alan Wallace phrase, which I'm sort of fond of, right? But you can say it non-pretentiously too, right? That this is all just like stuff. This is just karmic momentum that's sort of playing out. This is a sort of like cognitive and conceptual world that we sort of are moving through, that we are sort of creating. But yeah, we're that, like, again, just coming back to that one taste element, right? And to me, that is like a sharp distinction between the sort of karmic predilections that get baked into the cake of how the worldly protectors in their origin were just described, right? Like, we will do our thing. We have these preferences, we have these tendencies, right? And so we're going to put that on the Dharmic path, press that into the service of a sort of Dharmic, aeonic agenda, right? But those sort of particulars are still going to remain. And to make it just sort of personal, closing this out, it's something that makes me a little bit uneasy too, right? Because like there's something kind of like, again, it's pure, it's totally liberated, but it's also sort of abstract and sort of completely depersonalized when I think about arriving at a point where I sort of would no longer have any basis for preference, state A over state B, state, you know, X over Y kind of thing, right? Like at that point, um, what it means to be anything at all, to reference Neutral Milk Hotel, is so alien from my present conception. And I know like a Dharma bro would say, yeah, no shit, bro. But like, you know what I mean? Like that, there's something like I would have to like work to reconcile myself with that a little bit more. But again, this is all sort of maybe getting very theory cell, because I can think of a lot of other stories as well, and just like experiences with like current like Tolkus and stuff that seem to act as though they still maintain the basis for discrimination and preference in their Monikayas and Sambhogakayas, right? Like even as they are enlightened. Does this make any sense?
100%. Well, I think one really easy way you can think of it is that the preferences and sort of differences of the protectors, the host of protectors, they all get folded into one. They keep getting folded into the higher Buddha until the higher Buddha becomes like the Vajradharma. So this is perhaps just a difference between like Dzogchen and like a more Mahayoga path, or another kind of like Mahamudra, some other thing along with deity yoga, where that's what you're supposed to be doing. So you're folding both of those things in, so you're trying to just focus on the non-dual elements, but that's what we're doing. So the worldly deities, like part of the further away from the mandala, those represent you. That's all thoughts that you have. That's all impulses that you have. That's all like it's like okay, so like Begase Chen, who's in the retinue of Hayagriva. So he has his 29 butchers. Those are all our impulses, all our karmic sort of like lives that we've lived out, because we've lived on the world many times and we've had many pleasures in the world. That's a very Buddhist way to think of it. We've experienced it all before. So there's nothing really new for us to experience. We're kind of just like, we're declarifying, as you say, de-aggregating, or not declarifying. We're de-aggregating to become to a place of clarity, Diamond Thunder. So that's what the deities are meant to do. They're meant to disaggregate not our worldly lives, but our kind of karmic lives and our kind of like chain of causal events. And the more like when we bring them more into the cosmic Buddha or the primordial Buddha or the main Buddha or whatever the mandala deity is, we're getting to a place of non-duality. That's the whole point. You're kind of like bringing them in. You're kind of being like, you're recognizing that, yeah, I actually don't need to feel this way about this. I can let this go. I don't actually need that protector. He can actually come in. He can come in and you bring them all in. That's how they used to do it. Especially when you see Sand Mandala, them doing it, that's what you're supposed to be thinking about in your mind. Is like you're placing the protectors as you build out the mandala, and then when you wipe it all away, you're saying it's all empty. So that's what the deities are. It's not, but it's like I understand from like a skepticism because I'm very non-theistic. So like for me, it's I have to take more of a leap and say, okay, there are real, and yes, that is partly true too. So I acknowledge that, but I think people often get caught up on the fact that they're so real, but they're also mental conceptions. And I think like non-dualism really reconciles that. And then also you have to consider that like doing the wrathful sort of practices, and I'm not saying wrathful practices is in like you're doing yamataka, or no, I'm not saying you, Solar, I'm saying anyone. Or yeah, Hayagriva. Okay, so for me, doing Hayagriva, it's not just doing wrathful practices. It's actually to like clear my own karmic bullshit, my own aggregates. That's why I use a wrathful deity. So it's just much more efficacious for my own like karmic well-being. It's not so much to do like um, practices that the worldly protectors need. I don't really need them for those things. It's good. I think it's good. I think it's really good. I'm saying it's a fourth pillar. I 100% agree with this. So if it's like Gesar or Odin or Rahula or Ekajati or whatever thing that you want to like go do, no, I'm not saying for anyone here, I'm saying for just anyone listening, then that is what you should go do as a protector practice. But recognize what it is and recognize that there's a karmic implication for any protector. And it's a reflection of your own mind. It's not just like whatever you like. It has to like be the one that is the most, I mean, you can change too, but like for a protector, you want something that is like a direct reflection of like your own wrathfulness, because then it's easier for you to clarify. So I hope that kind of, I don't know. Okay, cool. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
As I was listening to you, both Solar and you talk about this, I was thinking of it in another way, maybe. So I was wanting to ask if this was perhaps another way for it to be applicable. So in terms of like planetary protectors or whatever, I was thinking, oh, that's kind of like the ionosphere protecting us from cosmic radiation. It's kind of like Jupiter snaring all the asteroids that are loose and keeping them from coming at us. The moon taking as many as it does, etc. So I was just curious if even that could be a way of interpreting how it's occurring in the less densified areas, like in space perhaps. And that, when we think of it as like here on Earth or Malkuth, we might have emissaries of these celestial entities and they densify whenever they come to Earth and take form or whatever. And so I kind of think of that as like a mandala as well. Like a mandala is kind of like the energetic signature or pattern. They're cymatics, if you will, that results from that frequency or its influence. So I was just wondering if that all kind of jived. Like, could you look at a mandala and know, like, oh, this might be from this planet or this star just because of the vibration, the way it looks, maybe. Anyway, it was just a thought I had.
Obviously, this is true, like in the sense that you can map the, celestial heavens to the mandala. This is what tantric astrology really is for. So you kind of look at every section. That's why it talked about his body parts being chopped up and then thrown in the different directions. It wasn't just a story about his body parts being chopped up and thrown in different directions. There's actually like a Twilight language, two different Twilight languages within that one Twilight language, or within that one sort of literal like retelling. It's telling him, saying like different positions on the mandala would be different stars on his body. So if you knew tantric astrology for that mandala, you would know like how he would be like arranged and positioned, and which protectors would go where, and so you would access them through certain gates, certain ritual words, because the words also have places on the mandala, right? Like the primordial words. So the whole idea is just like in Kabbalah, as we always say, it's words moving through, right? It's light moving through the paths. That's the same thing the mandala is. It's light moving through the paths, light moving as words. So you're speaking them with wind, Vok. You're drawing them through the different angles, through the different, corners, twists, turns, circles, locks, gates. That's what you're doing, both inner and outer, and maybe at the secret level as well. I don't know. Okay, Joshua, please go ahead.
Well, yeah, and just to add to that, since you kind of characterized them as gates and having the words, it reminded me of like in the Book of Thoth, I think he's given tokens and passwords. I think in Liber Secundus, John Dee's given various tokens and passwords, and Freemasonry, they're given tokens and passwords, etc. It's past ubiquitous in some other systems too. But yeah, anyway, that's just some of the other thoughts that kind of rushed to my mind there.
Well, the mandala is also empty. So it's like nice to I agree that these are like very important mental practices for people, and like they can be very magical in nature. But fundamentally, the only thing that really matters is that they're also empty. So it's important not to get too caught up in the conceptualizations of them, but it also matters to like know them. So if you're ever going to use the ideas from them, you have to really know them. But you also can say that you are not going to get caught up in them because they're also empty. So that's also a possibility. Solar, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I was gonna say, like, again, I'm not trying to like poo-poo the idea of like this sort of like information parsing, right? Like passcodes and tokens and things like that. But in my experience, like a more generic and useful schema is like um, is sort of like a preparatory process that ensures that that there's either a symmetrical or mirrored or otherwise like sympathetic configuration of like energies or really of mind, frankly, because it's spoiler alert, like it's really all mind. um that the sort of like the subject, the I, is sort of like prepared in such a way that you can sort of like interface with this thing that you're conceiving of as being like outside of yourself, right? Like if you want to use like the gate metaphor or the door, like you have to get to a point where you are sort of like capable of like passing through the threshold, right? It's not like the token itself, right? It's that like acquiring the token, acquiring the passcode, like that process, that sort of like quest or subquest or whatever is going to shape your subjectivity, right? It's going to sort of like allow access to sort of like not, I don't want to say a part of your mind because I really really don't like sort of complicating the ontology of mind, but it's going to allow you to cross that threshold in a way that isn't actually external to you, right? It's not like you acquiring a token that exists independently of your existence somewhere out there that will allow you to then like cross a gate that also exists, like like to me these things are sort of like folded into each other. That doesn't mean that it can't be like a useful, like Jin was saying, like sort of conceptual framework through which to engage in ritual practice. Like I'm literally even working with some of those like sort of frameworks right now in my like daily practice, but I always do that from the sort of understanding of like a sort of, well, you know my sort of fundamental ontology, right? I also just wanted to flag, like, put it way down on the stack. We're probably not ready for this in tonight's conversation just yet. We got to get a little lubed up first. But I did want to ask a question about psychic sex and heart centers, but we can get there. I just wanted to put it on deck.
Okay, so we're not going to touch that specific subject, but we can. That doesn't happen at Heart Center. I'll just say that right now, like point blank, period. As far as I understand, now you can go ask one of the other Dharma bros. Maybe they will have a different answer, but as far as I know, for the practices that I'm aware of, no. So I'll just say that happens a little lower, and no, not there. And but like there is an important, like, obviously all the channels need to be open, the gates need to be free flowing. You have to understand where the bijas are placed and all of that. So basically that's the only way I can answer that tonight. And there is no lube available because that's never happening. Okay. What else? No, okay, so I agree with that. It's totally conceptual. The thing with the mandala is that it is like you want to get to the primordial place. So like Solar does it in his way. and I do it in my way. And so you could say that they're distinct yanas, which is how Vajrayana would say. So they're like distinct paths, but they're part of the same greater vehicle. So we're both walking the mandala in a way, whether he conceptualizes as a mandala or not. I do. So, I have to, that's how I think of it. But I also know that our experiences are similar in some ways. Like he was saying, like about the gates or like I was saying that too, as well, like about the gates and like the guardians of the gate and like having preparatory practices to pass through. Like we would say Vajrasattva. That's why that's part of Nyandro. Vajrasattva. Like that's the diamond thunder purity practice. It's meant to like cleanse all the negative karma. That's specifically what it's for. So you continuously can do that. That's one idea, right? Just one idea. I'm not teaching anything. I'm not saying anything that's not been talked about 10 million times. I'm just saying that one idea is that you can just use Vajrasattva, sort of like be pure, pristine, very sattvic. You have to live a sattvic life, obviously. And you can just do that. Now, everybody does Vajrasattva, no matter how they live their life, because Vajrasattva is just really important for Samaya vows. So you're going to do it no matter what. It's just a really useful practice for everybody. So that's one way, be pristine. Another way is to conceptualize the mandala as a carnal ground. So I'm saying a mandala, and we're talking about it like a city, like a CITY, but it is also a lotus. Well, it's shaped like a lotus, and then each petal of the lotus has a gate. There's a protector, you could think of it like that, in front of the gate. And then there's like a jungle with a bathing area. That's one way you can conceptualize it. And every direction has a different color, a different deity, a different series of deities, different denizens. And those are also conceptually of the carnal ground. So that's the actual carnal ground. And so it's also like 9 points, right? Because it's the center point. But there's actually 2 more, because there's the deity that arises from the center, the palace in the center. So although there's 8 plus 1 plus another one, there's actually plus 1 more. Why is that? Because there's the upasaka, the observer. So if you're generating the deity in front, which is what everybody here is pretty much doing, I don't want to know otherwise. Basically, you're the plus 1. So you're like the witness to this sort of like the great carnal ground. So you have to remember that this is how you are thinking of the mandala too. It's like it's both things. It is the city. It is the carnal ground, the lotus, the body of the goddess. You could say that. So a very common way to describe it. And it is also, but it's also like, it's also like of your mind. So like what do you get fixated on? What catches your attention? That doesn't mean think that's wrong necessarily. It's about skillfulness, and this is like very complicated, I've come to realize, because there are degrees of skillfulness, and it's like who is judging the skillful, how skillful something is. It can be very opaque. It's like Joshua and I were discussing karma privately. Sometimes, when you're doing broad strokes of karma onto certain events, it's very difficult, because this has been very contentious for hundreds of years. This is not like something that I'm going to resolve or someone else is going to resolve. It's just, I think in terms of how we should think of it aeonically, I think it's pretty simple. I think it's like, as I've described many times, the Aeon of the Daughter is like an anti-degradation. So it's like the renewal, like the kind of rebirth, if you want to call it that, of something else. And so I think it's all up to you. It's all up to your will. I think it is love without desire. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Go figure it out. And I and I also think it is, what is the other thing? Life. So there is like that you should follow. And I don't think that's the way. I'm just, while we're here, we might as well, live as strongly, fitly, bestly, whatever as possible. And I think that's an Aeonic idea. It's not like something I'm just like, riffing on. And so that's what I think it is. And I think it's self-respect. That's what the bija means in Sanskrit for the Aeon, if you want to go by my framework. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. Because I think knowing your own will is having like a good sense of discrimination, a good sense of like knowing your boundaries, knowing your will. Obviously I said that, but knowing your will can also mean to say no in certain things and say yes in certain things. It doesn't, it's, I think it's much more about the onus is on you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much, I don't know, did I totally go off, Joshua? I just think that that's probably more useful than to like talk about deities and mandalas and like what to do. Like, if you're asking me from like a tantric perspective, what should people do? I don't know. Like, I don't know what you should do. I can tell you like an idea that I have is that people should probably practice the Aeonic practices. Now you can understand that in different ways. I think the Gnostic framework's perfectly fine. I think it's good. Like Nuria, Seth, and Zoe. Like, go figure out who those people are. Go look for those archetypes yourself. I'm not a religious Gnostic, so I don't know like what you can do with that. But just like as archetypal ideas, I think that's interesting. Yeah, Monty, sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's like exactly what you're saying there is that all of these things are not like a roadmap. This isn't a textbook. Like while like the practices of these, well, while there are other ritualistic components that like you can build a framework and a foundation off of, the fundamentals are like obviously there for a lot of this stuff. It's like, what does it mean to you? It's just so important how personalized this stuff is because it's like your journey. Like you can't, like no one can tell you the right or wrong way to go and practice like your own. I mean, your own like faith and your own through the lens of yourself. And a lot of these things are like totems and archetypes to go and like build yourself, either in coalition or against. And it's really just like you know it when you feel it type deal. And that's why like trial and error is like so important. Human experience is the best teacher. And so it's at least that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I'll hand the mic back.
No, I think that's right, Monty. Like, this is a year-end space. Like, what are you supposed to take away? I don't know. Like, I think we did really interesting Aeonic thinking. I think I wasn't the only one. Obviously, everyone contributed to it. We all come in consensus. We all come like knowing plus ultra magic is motherfucking real. What is magic? As Solar said, it is mostly of your mind. It's 99% of your mind. So, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. Go figure it out. I've given so many different frameworks. There's tantric frameworks. There, there's Kabbalistic frameworks. There's Gnostic frameworks. I've given Christian Kabbalistic frameworks. We've talked about it so many times, and I just talked about the dragon, talked about the daughter, talked about the sun a little bit. This is kind of more of a sun space, but um, I think that, yeah, I think it's available to you. I think like read the Gnostic Gospels. I think you'll all get something out of it. I think there's nothing wrong with pursuing wisdom science, as we always said. Like, just try and not like to go crazy with it. Don't go in extremes. You don't have to be Buddhist. Like, I've never said you have to follow Dharma. I follow Dharma because I find that that stabilizes me and like how I kind of work through these like greater ideas. Is like if I have like a sort of like fixed point, a primordial point, you could say, of reference, relative truth and primordial truth. So that helps me. But maybe that's not useful for someone else. I can't tell you. Of course, if you practice Dharma, I think it's great. I think it's nice, but I can't really tell you what to do. So, nor do I want to. So, that's basically what I think. I think that I think this is an aeon of practices. I think that like you have to go into your own thing and figure out like what that means. And I also think like your life is your great work. Like, we haven't said that in a long time, but it is true.
but it does not mean that everything is like magic, perfect, like just like easily negotiable, just with like one mental check mark. No. If that was the reality, then everyone's life would simply just like disaggregate instantaneously and just like clarify instantaneous. No one in this room can do that. No one more than myself included, but I'm just saying, like, we all face obstacles and different things. And yes, most of that is of your own mind as well. I just want to say that. But it is also like karma is much more complicated. Karma is not a klipa. Really important to just keep in mind. And just like but do the practices, because practicing is a rajasic act, meaning that you're actively moving the light through the channels, if you want to think of it like that, very Gurdjieff, and you're disaggregating. You're trying to figure out what is your will, because will and desire are not the same thing. And like, if you listen to me, if you want to, you don't have to, but I encourage you to do like a non-dual appraisal and bodhicitta, so loving kindness. I think that will serve people like really well. Meditation number one. I think we've talked about it in every episode of Threshold Saints for like probably 50 episodes. It's a very important idea. I'm very proponent of meditation. Obviously, I do deity yoga. You can do whatever you want. I can't tell you what to do. I don't want to, but it's just some ideas, just things that have worked for me, and I think that are interesting. Yes, Matt, please go ahead.
To complement what you just said, and it's the idea that without challenge, there's also not much fun and not much to grow and not much to learn. Like, you have to start something, and there's gonna be opposition to it. It doesn't have to be crazy opposition, right? It depends on, again, your level of understanding and, like you said, most things of the mind and so on, so on. And then the balance. So it's always the three-part problem, and the challenges are fun. They Just think about it. Every time you learn something, it's because you before had the challenge of not knowing it. So there's not growth without this bit of challenge. Again, if a tree wants to grow its roots onto the ground, it has to burst through the ground. It cannot just grow. It has to like get space there and then start growing. And it's just like that. When we are born, we have to, being born and so on and so on. So the opposition, let's say the contradiction, is what makes us grow as well, and is what gives us form. These are basically the three columns of the tree, right? You have the right column, then the left column, then the middle. It's the most important part, but you need both to reach the balance. You need to understand hot and cold. Hot and cold, to get into the middle, into the lukewarm, into the balanced temperature. And it's so fun. It's so fun when you decide that you want to do something, like change something inside of you or whatever it is. You want to start something and so on. Things just start going on. That's what, those are the real synchronicities, in the sense that whatever is inside is going to be aligning to what's in the outside, and you can perceive it, because the reality is they always happen, but we don't perceive them always. But when we do perceive them, we say, "Oh, right, cool, synchronicity." And again, the more in tune you are, the fastest this will happen, and the easiest it will be to go through the challenge. Not saying the challenge will be easy, but going through it, because it's going to be clear. Like, I'll give you an example, right? I wanted to, ever since I think last week or something, I wanted to become more assertive. Just, not crazy things. Just, let's say, if something went wrong when I'm ordering something, usually I would say, no, it's whatever, just leave it. But I wanted to change that. I wanted to be like, no, if I ordered this, I want this. Like, fuck you if you fucked up something. Like, let me get the thing I ordered, But usually, and that's the funny thing, I decided that I'll change that. I was in the airport, and then I went to order something. The guy said, "Oh, we don't have that thing," and it was clearly there. And then he said another name, like, oh yeah, it's that other thing. I said, ah, sure. I thought it was like a name. Then okay, I paid, and he went to get a different thing than the one I ordered. Then again, perfectly, like literally the next day, like I had decided the day before, the next day I already got something to work on. Thing I wanted that other one. Then he went, oh okay, cool, yeah, right. Sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, he got it. He got it. Okay, I paid and so on. But then I knew that the thing that I wanted was gonna be cheaper, and not like crazy cheap, but again, one more confrontation thing that it could be assertive. Then same idea. I went, confronted, like, hey, I paid more for the thing, and then he was like, oh, cool, but like I cannot give you because you paid on card and so on. You can get like these candies or whatever. Sure, I got candies, and in the end, it was even like more than what I had paid or whatever, like a couple cents more. But that's the thing, and then I could go on and on and on things that started happening, but I can only act on them, and it can only change my consciousness because I've decided before, and then I can take the decision. Then I can react differently, because I could have said to myself, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna become more assertive. These things happen, and I don't change my behavior, right?" And then it's up to me. So most definitely, confrontation must come. And again, the confrontation doesn't mean, you know, fighting people in the street or getting fired and becoming homeless and whatever. It doesn't have to be that crazy. It depends on you. You decide how you want to play out that. But yeah, it has to be there. And it is what makes the whole thing fun. It's like playing a game. Even if you have cheats available, you still want some confrontation. Otherwise, you just quit the game. You know, it's gonna be like, okay, this is boring. Cannot do anything here. That it's valuable, right?
No, that was great, Matt. Thank you. I don't know about any of that, honestly. I'm in a place where I want to just be speculative Gnostic, but in my heart, I'm like follow the Dharma. But it's hard, right? Like it's like the reconciliation. I think this is what I think is I'm finding interesting and important. This kind of looking at other people who I recognize have Yasada consciousness and seeing kind of the pitfalls of that, and looking at people who have Tipharadic consciousness and seeing the pitfalls of that, and seeing why I prefer a more dynamic way of thinking. I think it should be in constant dialectical relationship or dialogical, not rather than you don't want to stay in one or the other. It's a little dicey, especially because we are, of course, are on the chronoground. We are in the Ketuvian flux. That is X. So maybe being a sublunar and with a lunary consciousness is not always desirable. So I can see that now. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead. Cannot hear you, brother. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll just come back. No problem. Well, I thought I would read one of the treaties, like a short part of the treaties, before we sort of close out here. Unless anyone has any questions or anything that they are burning to say. That's fine. I'll take it. I mean, I'm not describing anything like that. Solar Exile. Um, but we definitely can. We definitely can discuss any kind of Dharma related or Tantra related or astro-theological questions. Yes, okay, Joshua, I'm going to bring you up right now. Oh, you're on the speakers. It says you're a speaker. Okay, go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on the correct internet. Normally that happens when I get on the wrong one, but I'm on the one that normally doesn't give me problems. But anyway, since Seth is here, I wanted to mention something Elden Ring related that's really interesting here. So when we were talking about Rahula earlier, it kind of likened him to the stars and things like that. And there is a character in Elden Ring that kind of upsets the order of things and refuses to be controlled by some of these like outer entities, and so they carve their own fate basically. and then they take their place among the stars and all this, and there is eclipse energy and all that, like that's part of her lore. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And there was another thing too, although it escapes me at the moment. Oh yeah, the Erd tree. There's a big tree that you guys might have talked about, although I fell asleep when we were recording that episode. But anyway, the Erd tree in this story was said to have started out as a seed, and when it was sprouting, all things were against it. Like everything was trying to attack it and destroy it, but that despite all of that, it like grew and was nurtured and became like this huge, mighty, great tree. So anyway, these topics that we're talking about, I'm convinced that Elden Ring is like Buddhist or whatever.
Well, since you said that, Seth and I did kind of discuss a little bit of this, I think, on our upcoming episode. We had we were both we're both very verbose people, and we both have we kind of have a similar background, and we've got a lot in common. So when you put two of us together, we both tend to speak it tends to be very word salad. So, and I'm more uninhibited because it's like so innocent, right? It's like your kid brother. I'm sorry, Sal, I shouldn't say this about you, but that is how I feel. So it's like more like that. It's like not, the adult pressures aren't on as much. So we just kind of go far. But it was a great episode. I think that you'll listen back and you'll be like, yo, they were thinking in the way, like, this is the right. And I think like everything that you said and then everything that we said after, I think it'll all fit. So I have to retitle your episode as well, because the title that I'm using now has to go for one of Solar's upcoming episodes. So I and that's neither here nor there. Just a reminder to myself. Okay, yes, Solar, then Joshua.
I just want to make a brief comment. There's a version of the Chariot card, the Oxy number 7, that I've been working with recently. It's a very different version of the card. And among other things, it features a wolf with bloody jaws and an Iron Maiden, among other figures. And it really resonated with me because this figure, the wolf, in the card is, I think, a really valuable sort of figure archetype to internalize as a sort of internal accuser that's always ravenous, that's always aggressive, that's just nonstop balls out in identifying and attacking the parts of the self that are not conducive to growth, to transfiguration, to the Grail quest, right? That need to be attacked and identified and extirpated without mercy and without hesitation, right? And there will come a time, right, when that wolf needs to be domesticated and allowed to rest at the master's feet. But I know I'm not there yet, and I'll know it when I get there, and I'm not too worried, right? And in fact, what we come to realize, I think, not that this changes the nature of the quest or really the activity at all, is that those parts of ourselves are not actually parts of ourselves at all, right? Those are, whether you want to call them karmic accretions, they're not us, right? They're part of the sort of contingent givings, our thrownness, if you want to think about it in Heideggerian terms. They're the things that we're born into this world with, or that we sort of acquire over the course of our contingent um, lives, right? But they're not core to our essence, as though anything is, you know. And the idea is that, like, we have to be bold in our willingness to sacrifice them, and it's only through the process of attacking them without mercy that we actually come to really truly understand that they actually never were part of us, right? All of these like negative sort of belief patterns, these coping mechanisms, things that we think that we're just burdened with. Like, I mean, just think about it, you know, how people talk about like mental health stuff, right? Like, oh, I have depression or whatever. Like, well, what the fuck does that even mean? You know, that kind of stuff. But I'm not just talking about that superficially. Like, this kind of goes up and down, right? But it's like we attack these things and then we realize they weren't ours to begin with. Does that make sense? Right? And we need these things in a way, right? These things, I'm kind of bringing together what you were saying, Joshua, and it's actually something that Matt was saying, right? That like these hindrances, these accretions, as well as truly external like struggles, up fours, etc., these things actually allow us to identify like what the weaknesses are and to motivate us to destroy them, right? Like without those struggles, there wouldn't really be this like impulse towards action, towards change, towards, I don't want to say perfection, right? But to like engage in the quest at all, right? So there's this like the external conditions, right? The everything against that tree. Those things are actually that's like a really important sort of catalyst, right? Because like those are the things that actually allow like the tree like to blossom as it is, instead of just to continue in a stagnant state of sort of changeless stasis that never goes anywhere, that never develops, right? That's just dead already, even if it's technically alive. I don't know. There's something there. Sometimes you just got to get in the fucking chariot, you know.
Well, as you know, I do like a werewolf, but a werewolf goddess, not a werewolf. So, just want to say that. But yeah, I mean, I think that is all useful. That's what the outer protectors are for, right? That's what the outer protectors are. They're all of the things that aren't us, all of our bullshit that we think we are. When we stop grasping, we stop clinging to them. And I wanted to say this about the Rahula story. One thing I should have mentioned is it started the story with Manjushri, the Buddha of non-dual wisdom. Well, if you understand the story, if it starts at Manjushri, then it goes to Yamataka, then it goes to Rahula. So it's saying that Manjushri is there at all three levels. It's quite skillful. So it's saying like the less you need to engage, the closer you are to non-dual wisdom. Now, of course, you can say Yamataka, oh, very ferocious, very powerful. But he's also resting in abidingness or whatever. He's like resting in Rigpa. That's not quite the language for that tantra, but that's kind of how it is. And so, but he's Diamond Thunder when he opens his eyes, when he needs to be. He's single pointed when he needs to be. And that's the whole story of like the splendor of the mind ray and all the magic colors and the sort of like spiral that emerges. It's all to like show that you can go back to like single pointed. And so that's also like a question that you asked a few weeks ago when we had our space about like the difference between like Kila and Vajrakilaya or Purba and Vajrakilaya. Well, once you bring all the hosts in, they no longer exist. They're just in emptiness. So all of the kinds of things that you were the cause of, like the causal force to bring those hosts into reality, they disperse. But you can also channel them through the single pointed tip. So that's really the difference. All the aggregates are gone and you're just like at singularity with your will, if you want to say that, for Vajrakilaya. So it's like a way to redirect the Diamond Thunder. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, I'm sorry, Matt, please go ahead.
It's very nice that you mentioned the wolf in the chariot card, Solar. There's a lot of decks that in the moon card you have both the wolf and the dog. So, like you said, the domesticated version afterwards. Which, again, if we are talking about the moon, we are talking about the hidden enemies. So, who is the biggest hidden enemy, if not ourselves, the untrained self? And it's again very, very interesting, the idea of you have this version which is it's not you, but a lot of people will assume it's them. And a lot of times where this comes from is from, well, our environment, family. So now, especially Christmas time, should be aware of that. A lot of patterns, a lot of paradigms, a lot of stuff that we aggregate through life is just, because of the place that you were born in and the people that raised you. And again, not to shame on them, it's just the story. How are you gonna get through life? As a human being, you need people to take care of you, you need people to teach you, even if it's not the best perfect teaching. It is some teaching, even if it becomes afterwards an idea of what not to do. So it's not to shit on them, dunk on them, but understand that you also are not them. It's just the basis, not the start. And there's the expression that some Freemasons use to work on the rough ashlar. So again, the idea that you get the thing and it's rough, and you have to chisel it, you have to work on it for it to become perfect. Well, at least that's the goal. You're not necessarily doing it in one lifetime, but the idea is that you have to start breaking it apart, what you have, so that you have at the end what you wanted, and you have to do it. Otherwise, if you don't do it, someone else will do it, and then in the end, let's say if you wanted your ashlar to become like a horse, but you didn't do anything, and then it became, I don't know, a cow or whatever, then you just lost your time here. So don't lose your time here, man. Go work, go do your stuff. Like Sora was talking about, go gold, work with that wolf, and then eventually domesticate it. Just don't slack around. And to be honest, I think it will be really hard to slack around, especially next year, given all the things that are happening on the skies. But anyways, let's see how that plays out.
Well, I think that was great, Matt, because I think that was the whole theme of the space, was the adamantizing process. That's what the stories are talking about. That's what the other story I'm gonna like close this out with is about. It's about like overcoming the obstacles, the aggregations, the poisons. That doesn't just mean like it's not like. Well, I was listening to a Jonangpa, a Lama. So Jonangpa is a really small school, but they have some really powerful, and they say they have the full Kalachakra teachings. So even though the Dalai Lama also teaches Kalachakra, they say that he is not complete. So that's an inter-school thing. We'll just leave that. But I think that it's really interesting because one thing they said was like the deity that you practice in your life is the deity that you will see on the bridge to death, to the bridge to the spirit world. And if you're able to recognize that deity amidst all the ghosts and demons of the carnal ground, then you can go to that deity and you'll experience like non-duality because it's really you. But they do say that if the deity is the more peaceful the deity, the less likely you will be able to recognize it, because all the ghosts and demons love to pretend to be peaceful deities, because people get distracted by sort of like the things that they cling to, the sort of like vacuous feelings of peace and quietude. And the wrathful deity, the idea is that it kind of wakes you up, puts you into waking consciousness, so you can see things for as they really are, see yourself for as they really are, maybe. So, which is empty, luminous, and massless. So anyway, so I'm going to read the one little portion, and then we'll close out. So this is from the Second Treatise of Seth. Then before the foundation of the world, when the whole multitude of the assembly came together upon the places of the Ogdoad, when they had taken counsel about a spiritual wedding which is in union, and thus he was perfected in ineffable places by a living word, the undefiled wedding was consummated through the mesotes of Jesus, who inhabits them all and possesses them, who abides in an undivided love of power, and surrounding him he appears to him as a monad. All of these, a thought and a father, since he is one, and he stands by them all, since he is as whole, came forth alone, and he is life, came forth from the Father of ineffable and perfect truth, the Father of those who are there, the union of peace and a friend of good things, and life eternal and undefiled joy, to a great harmony of life and faith, through eternal life of fatherhood and motherhood. They had agreed with Nous, who stretches out and will stretch out in joyful union, and in trustworthy and faithfully listens to someone. And he is in fatherhood and motherhood and rational brotherhood and wisdom. And this is a wedding of truth, and a repose of incorruption, and a spirit of truth, in every mind, and a perfect light, and an unnameable mystery.
But this is not, nor will it happen among us in any region or place in division and breach of peace, but in union and mixture of love, all of which are perfected in the one who is. I don't know. I thought it was cool. So, anyways, great end of year. You know, we kind of traveled through the tunnels of Set, kind of came out the other end, and now it is a wind horse year, or fire horse. But, so it's a great time for Hayagriva practice. I'll just say that. As was this year. But maybe some of us didn't practice Hayagriva as much as we should have. But you can still do it next year. So I did practice Hayagriva a little, just not probably enough. But anyway, so yeah, this year, let's go wind horses, let's go fire horses, and put your prayers, good prayers, right? Because that's the idea. The fire horses carry the prayers faster, even than the wind horses. They carry them faster to God or to the spirits or to the, mountain grandfather, whomever it is, to the Buddhas, to the Bodhisattvas, to the people in Akanishta, to the immortals on the mountain, whomever it is. They carry the prayers faster. And so we have to be more intentional in your prayers. And but it's a good year. It's not a snake year, you know. So well, snake, it was a little hard. And I just want to say that I will try to just move not forward, but just not dwell in the things that happened this year. But I just want to say, I want to just pour one out for the homie Zach and just say, thank you so much for coming on my show and introducing me to Tracy Twyman. And obviously, thank you to especially to Solar, but also to Matt and Joshua for putting up with my malding for many months. And because the show would not really have gone on if they didn't keep me. They were it was I don't know. I needed the support. That's it. So whatever. Okay. So let's do room closeouts. I'll do a room shout out and then everybody can introduce themselves. Because I saw. So Q just came in. Thank you, Q. Appreciate it. Check out Q and I's double episodes. We did The Craft and 10 Things I Hate About You. And I made both a kind of a Kabbalah episode. So I still expect to be invited on your show sometime. I'm just kidding. Please come back to my show anytime. You and Vicky are always welcome. Thank you so much. Mac, thank you so much for popping in. I know you're just getting used to the flavor, the style of how we do it, or how I do it at least. We have an episode coming out, Mac and I, on the Empty Man. And, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, shit, sorry. Well, I guess I'll have to drop it faster. Because... Well, no, it doesn't matter. So that'll happen. I'll make sure to drop it fast. Anyways, it'll be great, and Mac and I are gonna work on something else because I think we can do some Canadiana cinema justice. So thank you, Mac. Appreciate it. Cassandra, she is gonna come on. She is coming on. If what's her name? Allison, if Allison let me drop an episode with her, Cassandra has to. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. She's so smart and so knowledgeable about tarot and astrology and Gnosticism and Kabbalah. And she can give the boys a run for their money. So it makes sense because I don't have that many girls on. So, we're trying to mix things up, right? Have some dakinis. Bring some dakini action to the house. Not too much. Because it's not, right? Because with me, it's I already have a skywife. So it's already a triad situation with anyone. So, I'm just saying, it's just it's a lot of trouble. It's I'm a handful. So it's so anyways, what I'm trying to say is that if Cassandra comes on, I promise to be nice and be good. Okay. Zach, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you for the Tracy Twyman series. That was the sort of bedrock of how I could start thinking about things in a different way. Solar brought up ARGs. Yeah. I think everything on social media is an ARG. I think the world is an ARG because I think it matters where you place your time and attention, what narrative matters. So, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And okay, so Zach, yeah, amazing, great. Thank you so much, brother. Check out Zach. His YouTube channel has had a couple viral videos, so make sure you like and subscribe to that. Thank you so much, Zach. Appreciate that. Sorry, I almost forgot.
Trenorist, I'm still not sure what that means. A little scary, but cool. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for the love on the timeline. DeMorgan, thank you so much, brother. Now you're Logi, so it doesn't really matter. But so I can just say thank you and just say you're Logi and just like call you one of us. But I appreciate it, and I know it's a little different than probably the spaces that you normally come to, but I think it's cool that you do. Al, thank you so much for all your love on the timeline. I think that we're both Hapaborean, but I'm not sure. But maybe we're just all Hapaborean, and it doesn't really matter. So just take it as empty, I guess. But I really do appreciate like our wordplay and the use of quotations. I thought that's very skillful as well. Something I've been doing for quite a few years. But one of those things that is important to acknowledge that other people do, because it does separate you from your own words. So it can be rather skillful. Seth and Joshua have an upcoming episode, as of yet untitled. But it's really cool, and the keynote's cool, and I think it'll be great. And Six Compson Dreyfus. Thank you so much. I've seen you in the Rejects chat. Appreciate it. Obviously, check out Threshold Saints, episode 77, Solar Exile, Gregory Peters, Tantra. Y'all know I can go for a while on that subject, at least. And Substack, thresholdsaints.substack.com. All the links will be there. My link tree will be updated and will be in there. And they'll have a YouTube section for our Grey Lodge stuff, as well as our website, thetruegraylodge.com. I have to close out. Before I let the boys close out, I have to just shout out Mike, who had to dip because it's the holidays, but we appreciate him, and I'm sorry he didn't get very generative for him. Like, I didn't ask him direct questions, which next time I will, but I hope he has a great night, and thank you everybody. Solar, Matt, Monty, of course, Joshua, thank you all for coming, appreciate it, and for making the Grey Lodge live another year, because it did. It's like now 2 years old, but it only started to come into formation this last year, so congratulations to all of you and contributing to this free, public, intellectual, consensual magical project that we all do, because we come in consent, we come in will, and we come in perception. So it's kind of cool, and it is kind of punk, and it is kind of chaos magic, and it is kind of anti-archonic, and that's kind of what makes it work. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. So we'll just go in order. Solar, Matt, Monty, and Joshua. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be real quick since I don't know, no here like cringe sappy stuff. I just want to say I'm extremely grateful this space exists and that it has continued to be something that sort of like received the energies, not just of Jin, who I want to express, my deepest gratitude for, just for being this sort of like pivot point around which this whole thing orbits, right? I'm very cool acknowledging that. But I think for everyone, like I can only speak for myself, but it is really insane how generative this space has been for me. In some ways, I'm least interested in the sort of words that I myself have contributed to it or the thoughts that I've sort of fed into the space. But it's impossible for me to sort of conceive of my own trajectory of development and my own sort of path without this space. It's become really central, and yeah, just so incredibly sort of productive in ways that are often, I don't know, kind of wild and unpredictable. But yeah, I'm very grateful for all of you, and it's something that's worth sort of continuing, worth fighting for, right, without being too corny about it. And I hope that it remains that going into the new year, not just for myself, but for all of you as well. So yeah, just thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Sawyer. That was really nice. Very sweet. Very unk. I'm still not teaching you any of that thing that you asked. Okay. Anyways, but yes, thank you. You all know you're important to me. It's for real. Helped me through a really dark time. I feel like I wouldn't have come out the other side on socials. I was not even going to say. So that's how I feel. I feel like you anchored me here, even though I wasn't compelled to. I still decided to stay or to return or whatever it is, whatever the fuck. Okay, so
100%. I hear you, perceive you, acknowledge you, appreciate it. Okay, Matt, please go ahead.
Solar words are my words. I doubled them. It's just so fascinating, and we talked about this 1,000 times already, that, you know, the week spaces kind of relates to something in life, and then there's a bunch of synchronicities, and it's just so fun and nice. And our last episode on YouTube had 400 something views. That was impressive, super nice. I think the most we had before that was like 100 something, or even less, like 80, and then 100, and then 400. So it's very, very nice to see that. Not only the external appraisal, but just the fun we have while doing it. I think that's, to me, what counts even more. If it was just one listener, which is ourselves, that would be already pretty good. So very nice to do them. Very nice. And thanks not only everyone that makes it happen, but everyone that comes to listen as well. If you're listening through YouTube, or through, in the future, some other esoteric platform, whatever, we might add it. So yeah, very fun. Again, you can find me on socials at Metmara19. Now, like I said, I'm gonna be focusing more on tarot. So if your current life, kind of, the story is not the best, let's say, if you would fancy a better story in your life, tarot may help with that. So if you either read tarot for others or want to have tarot read for you, just DM me and I'll set you up with the details, or just go to my website, Kabbalah.com, Kabbalah.com. Again, love you, Jin, love you, Solar, love you, Joshua, love you, Monty, Mike, all the brothers that stayed in the past as well, even though some of them we might not keep in touch or whatever, they were also there. They were also important for the story, you know? You always have side characters or whatever. So it's very nice.
Not everybody can be young Jinskis. That's all I'll say. Those nuggets thought I was a side character in my own story. Nope. I knew I was special. That's the thing. But I also know I'm not special. So there you go. Paradox. I'm not special. I'm not saying I am. Please don't clip that and say that. Oh, Jin was being like, he's saying he's like a star child. I said I'm an evil star god. Evil star god. That's totally different. Okay. Anyways, thank you, Matt, so much. Appreciate it. And Monty, please go ahead.
I mean, Solar and Matt kind of knocked it out of the park there. It's this is one of the most. This is a precious space. I think it's important that the Grey Lodge as like an entity on its whole is one of the most generative, and one of the there's nothing quite like it. It's free education. It's like great conversations, and it's the size that it's grown in the past year is like truly unprecedented. And everyone who's here at the ground floor can like hang their hat on this. I'm eternally grateful to even be a periphery in any of this, and I really just want to show thanks to everybody here at speaking, everyone in the Grey Lodge, and the project at its whole is truly like remarkable and something to behold. So I know like the 1,000 years, whatever, but at the same time, like sincerely, this is, if you're here, it's incredible. Like this is just such a great melding of the minds, and I've met so many great people because of this. And yeah, Excelsior.
I do want to say, Monty, that you kind of shook me. We're all kind of thinking about politics in this totally new way. We don't really know what the fuck we're talking about. We don't really know what the fuck we're doing. You didn't say it like that explicit, but I'm kind of hyperbolizing it. So I just want to say that Monty's not really like that in text to me. I don't know about other people, but he was like very calm about it. He was just saying like, he's just like, you can figure it out too. You don't have to like always know like where we're going or what we're doing. We're just gonna like talk about things. We're just gonna syncretize where we can and like synthesize where we can, and we're gonna be in flux. So you know, that is kind of the direction that I'm really glad that we've done, and more of this, like what Solar said, like high openness culture, where we're just gonna talk about things and be kind of like more normal and not be like woke, or we're not either going to be woke police or scold police. We're not going to like do that, and I think that's actually healthier and probably more generative. It's definitely been more generative for me. um the space has obviously been incredibly generative for just like my show, so Threshold Saints, which many of you have been a part of, and also like myself personally, like very much. And so yeah, it really is meaningful. It's meaningful that we did like a fucking speculative Gnostic. I know, Solar Speculative. We didn't do practical magic. I get it. But we did do a speculative Aeon of the Daughter, which you could say, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily the scion, because I don't think like that. I think that the Zodiakim are the many, not the few. But if you want to say I'm the scion, a speculative scion, I did kind of come up with that totally on my own, even though other people had written and talked about it. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know. I think that person sounds cool, whoever did that. So I just want to say that. But yeah, I think that that's really interesting that we're all thinking at least even if you reference it in your mind that we're moving in an aeonic cycle, that means that like our conversations actually carried through space and time, transcended X, transcended the 1 and the 10, 10 and the 11. I think that's interesting. I don't know. Very punk rock in the real way, not the not the identity politics way, like the real way. Like we're breaking the klippas of the archons for sure, which I think is pretty cool, and that kind of makes me maybe I won't say that. It's very, I find it exciting. I find it cool and exciting, so I'll just say it like that. But I do kind of like that. I do kind of like that it's on the edge of something that is different and new, and we don't have to be married to trad conceptualizations, but we can respect things as they are and as they have arisen. We can just be like more non-reactionary, and maybe that's what makes it a dharmic space. Maybe the what makes it a dharmic space is not that we are like all about like singing kumbaya and like holding hands or whatever it is. I'm just saying we're not doing that at all. But what we can do is just kind of be here, listen to each other, bring up different ideas, bring up different kinds of heterodox ways of thinking that are maybe even contrary to the right sometimes, and maybe even, and like definitely will be contrary to the left. But I'm just saying that in general, we can shake things up, and that's okay. And I think that that is kind of what we've been known for. And we're sort of bringing to the surface, at least ideas that have percolated, whether we came up with them or not, or whether it was something we derived from something else or not. But I think a lot of the work that we do is actually pretty original. And I've been told by other people, other magicians, other much older magicians, in fact, that what we are doing is pretty original. And it's different, and it's not fixed in an institution. It's kind of like a nexus point, you could say. As we always said, it's kind of like an ipsos in manifestation. So we bring one element, even though I don't agree that that's the key word, we bring one element of the Aeon of Mot, Aeon of the Daughter workings into real life praxis. So although, yes, of course, it is metamagical, it is speculative, there are magical elements. Of course, recording this and putting it on YouTube, putting it on our phones, the lightning and the dragon together contain the aether wave, the Aramon into the aether wave. Very aeonic. And we're putting our will on it, right? And we're putting our respect for each other on it. So that is kind of bodhicitta, if you want to say that. Anyways, yeah, so I guess Joshua, I'm sorry, I'll let you close out. Joshua, final words, last words.
As long as it's not last rites. Hey guys, it's always a pleasure to be here. I look forward to these spaces quite a bit, and so I really appreciate all the synthesis and wisdom that comes out of these. I take a lot of notes too, so it's always like, having a morsel to go back to, later, like a squirrel hiding nuts or whatever. But I did have some insights about just Christmas in general, So the tree that most people probably have in their home, I was kind of thinking about that as a Kabbalistic tree, and the ornaments and garland on it, kind of like the Sephiro and paths. And people receiving these material gifts, and I thought, even though that is a very materialistic kind of thing going on, it might be a gateway to kind of open up dialogue with somebody like, hey, have you ever heard about the tree of life, and how the spiritual gifts flow from it, So you might be able to kind of reach somebody, even in a mundane, through the mundane thing, if you kind of do it in a skillful way, right? Like we've talked about the skillful means. So, I've quite frankly, I've been a Grinch in the past with Christmas, and I don't like it, because to me it's like a fake holiday. But this year I tried to meet the normies where they're at, so to speak, right? And I got a lot more out of it this year just by trying to navigate it a little differently and change my attitude toward it, because I think your energetic output with your attitude like that really colors the experience overall. It's you approach something negatively or positively, you're going to get it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that this year I was less of a Grinch. My heart didn't necessarily grow. It was big already, I think, but maybe it did grow. I don't know. But I got some people thoughtful gifts and stuff. So it wasn't like just capitalism, spending money willy nilly on stupid shit. But tried to like buy from local merchants, handmade things. Like I tried to make sure everything was, the dollar velocity, the dollar stayed in the community or whatever, stuff like that. So just a thoughtfulness, right? Elevating it from that material to maybe a mental plane at least. And then maybe even you get to have one spiritual conversation with somebody. Hey, maybe that's a victory, right? So anyway, didn't want to drone on. I just kind of wanted to mull on it a bit since we're at the end of the year space and all that. But the unconquerable sun, don't give up. We kind of have some inspiration to pull from there. So, and moving into the year of the ponyta, flaming horse, it's going to be interesting. That's very Sagittarian too. I thought, the whole theme of that. But anyway, I did notice there's some Threshold Saints episodes that have dropped and haven't yet checked them out. So just a reminder to, always visit that, turn your notifications on, so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here sharing time and space. Shabbat Shalom.
I just want to address something. Both you and Solar implied that I was flaming, and Cassandra implied that I was a Filipino muscle bottom. These things are not true. They are aspersive. I don't agree. I will not be categorized in any of these ways at all. I refuse, I rebuke, I reverse, and I am definitely not fucking Filipino. So, like, ew.
Disavow.
Well, there, disavow. I'm definitely not fucking Filipino, not Pinoy. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna read this David Hames Smith thing from Code of the Lightning Flash as the end because I actually think it's interesting. Theists mythologize the power of open possibility and claim it has spoken to special people, dictated self-serving commandments, and demanded living sacrifices. Theistic religion calls its conception of the primordial mystery God. Tradition informs us that their God is the ultimate source of all creative activity. But we can cast this God concept from its position at the head of all causal progressions. The space that is left once the prime mover has vanished can be left open, causeless, and free. It is vital and alive. Once we appreciate this, all hopes and fears attached to the theistic agenda can be abandoned. We can dive directly into the infinite expanse that is our birthright, and we need no permission from any external source. The power of the infinite can be felt right now if we are open to it. Stake this inquiry for a humanist philosophy. Secularism can take a turn into nihilistic dead ends that are just as soul-deadening as those of religion. Once their limitations are clear, a selective re-examination of both
religious and secular sources proves incredibly valuable, and the fruits of history can benefit us. However, we must be able to discern what is truly of use and what is not, and the onus of discovery is on each of us alone. Code of the Lightning Flash. Sounds like very similar to, your own Zadi, perhaps. Something that I've said many times is like, yeah, it is accessible to all of us. You have to put in the hard yards. You have to meditate. I recommend doing mantra japa. That's what I think. That's how I get there. So if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you. So I don't know. If you want to do other things, that's on you. That's up to you, your will. But I'm just saying that seems to work for me. So go do that. Go get it. Go get that bag. Have a great end of 2025, which was a fiery, venomous, interesting year. But I think we actually came out of it better. We're noticed for being cool Kabbalah bros, Vajra bros, left-hand path bros, weird bros. I don't know. All the things. And I'm excited to see what 2026 brings. So, let's see. I think it can only go up because, we passed the tunnels. So let's see what's outside the cave. Might be an interesting way to think of it. And then maybe we can even catch a glimpse of splendor, catch a glimpse of the lightning. Grab your fucking surfboard and let's hit it. That's what I think. Okay, so that's it. Jin the Ninja, fucking out. Go listen to Threshold Saints. Listen to our song Grey Lodge. Like and subscribe to our YouTube episodes with I think a lot of people in this room. They're all saints to me. This is a really important thing that Sachi and I had talked about 3 years ago. Is you have to let people, the Zodiakim, the saints, know that they are actually saints and that they are. It's possible. Also, that it's possible to be a saint. He asked me if that's what the name of my show meant, and I think it did actually mean that, but I didn't know about that. I'll just say it like that. But I think it did mean that. So I hope all of you know that it's possible. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think it's been great, and we'll just keep going. So I know that's not very, you know, pumped up kicks or whatever, but I don't really know what to say. But just thank you guys so much, and yeah, we'll just we'll move into the new year in flux and rock and roll.
1,000 years of Grey Lodge.
1,000 years of Grey Lodge.
1,000 years.